Welcome to the Movie Business Podcast, picking up where Movie Business Book left off. I'm Jason Squire, hosting a wide range of industry talent and executives to answer fundamental questions about the business today. Here we go. And today, the secrets of cinematography will be revealed by Dan Mindel, who worked his way up through the camera ranks from camera loader to assistant camera to camera operator, second unit DP, to director of photography for directors including Tony and Ridley Scott, J.J. Abrams, and Marc Webb. Credits include Star Trek Into Darkness, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, Pacific Rim Uprising, and Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. He is a member of both the American and British Societies of Cinematographers. Welcome, Dan.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here on the Movie Business Podcast. What are some of the secrets of cinematography?
There aren't any, really. Technology has more or less relieved us of any secrets or alchemy or anything that existed prior to the advent of digital photography. So we have a democratized technology that is open and available to anyone that wants to use it.
That certainly was a change in the classroom where suddenly there was no excuse. Anybody can go out and make a movie. What else comes to mind about secrets of the technique?
Well, that's where most everything counts, is in the usage of the more than 100-year-old technique that has been developed by people way before us, is still what we're using in terms of storytelling. And story is king, as you know. And so, the line of technology touching story is something that I personally try to keep separate, if that makes any sense. I work on a lot of technological movies,
right,
where we use a lot of visual effects and a lot of advanced filmmaking techniques, but the crux of the matter is always story, and without a decent story, we don't have a decent movie. And I think that is probably the most important secret of what we do. We enhance the story with cinematography.
Now, are there also secrets in terms of, the cinematographer and all the key crew members have very long hours, often on distant locations. So there are other secrets in terms of getting enough sleep or vitamins or exercise, anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. There probably as many people say no, not really, as say yes, for sure. There are secrets to the daily routine. For me personally, sleep is something that I'm able to catch up on when I'm not working, but my job description requires me to be really the first person at work and the last person to leave. And so whichever way you skin it, there's not enough hours in the day.
Well, in terms of turning to job description, that's a fabulous segue to a question about your key hires. So when you're starting to work on a picture, you make some of the key hires as head of the camera department. What are the job titles and responsibilities for these particular craftspeople?
The first person I would want to hire on a movie would be my gaffer. And the gaffer is literally, for me, the head of logistics at so many levels. But without using somebody that I know and trust, I open myself up to a lot more work that I don't really need to do when it comes to the daily routine of running a picture. The next guy that I'm going to hire would be the camera operator.
Now, before we get to camera operator, just to define gaffer, that's the chief electrician, because you're in charge of camera and lighting.
Yeah. that would be the lighting technician as opposed to electrician.
Right.
We would have dozens of electricians, but the lighting director or head lighting technician or whatever the denomination is now, this guy is somebody that not only creatively lights sets, but also technically keeps our use of electricity and light bulbs or LEDs, depending on how you go, absolutely functioning logistically and technically.
Mm-hmm. Well, good. Now let's turn to the camera operator.
You know, we would probably end up with two camera operators, an A and a B. Camera operator, as far as I'm concerned, is the person that is watching the movie being made. He's looking through the camera on a daily basis and directing the movement of the camera in terms of covering a scene and getting the most out of the situation with the actors. So this person, as far as I'm concerned, is the director's best friend on set, because he doesn't only operate the camera, he disseminates what the director is looking for in terms of camera movement and framing. Whilst I can add definitely to that relationship, I like to step back and keep an eye on the overall running of the set so that I can preempt any situations that are going to come up.
So that means being in close in touch with the first AD?
Yes, definitely.
And then do you check the monitor after every take? Is that...
Yeah, I really like to stand next to the camera operator. I like to be close to the camera, so if something happens or goes wrong, I can communicate quickly with the camera operator or the camera department and rectify, whether it's a lighting situation or weather or any other situation. I can get that resolved very quickly. The TV monitor part of the process is something that is very comfortable and very nice to have, but it disconnects me personally from what's going on.
And who would be the next person to mention in the department?
My first assistant camera man, who is also known as the focus puller, is to me as important as the gaffer and the operator. I really try to work with my colleagues that I've worked with for decades for a lot of reasons, but one of them is the complete understanding of what it is that I want to get optically from my lenses while we're shooting a movie. And my assistant, the first assistant camera, really understands that intimately.
Well, this is great because you've just made another fabulous segue to a different question, that the DP works closely with the director and production designer to determine the look of a movie. Can you give some examples of this?
Yeah, I think that one of the sort of greatest collaborations I've had in that sense was with the art department on Star Wars, where I was brought onto the movie at the very early stage of concept art, and seeing concept art develop and get hung on the walls of the art department allows one to imagine what the movie's going to look and feel like before it's got to the final script part of the process. The concept art allows a two-way conversation between myself and the entire art department in terms of palette, texture, and the construction of sets in order to light them in a meaningful way. And it's a fabulous process. It's part interior design, part architecture, and part storytelling. And for me, that is really one of the most joyful parts of what I do.
Wow. Oh, and by the way, what's your favorite camera?
My favorite camera is the Panaflex Millennium. It's a 35 millimeter film camera. It's a workhorse that really, really is the pinnacle of 100 years of photography, or cinematography, should I say.
And so you've worked, of course, with digital and film. What's your preference?
Aesthetically, my preference is film. I just have not had enough of it yet in my life to want to not use it. I'm just still fascinated by the process of light and chemical reaction. And so for me, given the choice, I would prefer to use film, but I've used digital platforms many times, and I am absolutely in awe of what is possible with those platforms. The ARRI 35 is probably my favorite camera. It's rustic and yet technical, and I think it gives cinematographers just so much freedom. As I said, it's more or less democratized the process.
Now, earlier you mentioned A camera, B camera. Can we just define and distinguish between the two? There's the A camera crew and the B camera crew.
A lot of traditional filmmakers like to use one camera, and it does a lot more justice in terms of how you light characters, because with one camera, you always get the best light on the actor. As soon as you put another camera into the process, it becomes compromised in some position or other, given that we like to sort of use backlight for everything. Commercial movies require a lot of coverage, and using two cameras allows, with the price, enough coverage to make your day and shoot the script. So A camera is generally the wider of the two lens-wise and shoots the establishing setup for a scene. That would be a setup that tells the story of the scene in one single shot. We would later add coverage, which would be tighter dialogue shots of the actors performing. And in that situation, we would bring two cameras, a mid and a tighter camera, and we would shoot as much as we could in each setup with two cameras to allow editorial enough freedom to cut the scene in many different ways.
Very good. Thank you. Well, now let's turn to your advice for listeners who want to pursue a career in camera.
Well, one of the biggest advantages I can sort of give people straight away is to take photographs. It doesn't matter what you're taking photographs with, but to take photographs of everything that you see in terms of teaching yourself what looks nice to you, what looks good. The technical part of it is something that you can learn by yourself by taking photographs. And I cannot state enough the value of teaching yourself what the light does to the lens that's on your camera, and if you're using film, what it does to the film, because that relates to what you're going to do later. And having a camera on your person all the time is a cheap and very, very conclusive way of confirming your own eye in a technical way. Cinematography is a giant subject that covers a lot of aspects of commercial filmmaking, and that, I'm afraid, takes years to learn. And so the advice for wanting to start a career in cinematography at a commercial level would be different, in the sense that, having done it myself from a layman's position first, I was able to learn via more or less apprenticeship. And that, to me, is really the finest way of learning set protocol, the technical aspect of everyone else's job on the set, so that you understand the complete layering of what it is to make a movie, from shooting sound, picture, special effects, and even catering or the electric department, everything. The more you understand, the easier it is.
Wow, all good advice. Thank you. And finally, the titles cinematographer and director of photographer are often interchangeable.
Yes.
What's your prognosis for cinematography?
A lot of people have asked me the same question recently about AI and cinematography. And I have to say that I find it all really exciting. The idea that technology is moving so fast that the antiquated problems that we had in making movies can literally be solved using software is something that is a game changer. And I've been exposed to that, if you pardon the pun, in the last movie that I shot. We, in post, have been coloring an analog movie, and the technicians that are doing the coloring are using AI to help them resolve optical issues on film. And to me, that is just absolutely exciting beyond belief. And so my prognosis is that the want for material on streaming platforms and even cinema is just growing so fast that there is an industry that is viable for young people to come into and take part in.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Thank you. This has been an inspiring session. Thank you so much, Dan Mindel, for being our guest in the Movie Business Podcast. Thank you.
Thank you. You're very welcome.